everybody. Thanks for joining me for today's edition with Coffee with Kelly. And as you can tell, it's a special edition because we have a wonderful guest, Alanna McGinn from Goodnight Sleep Site here with us. And we're going to be answering some sleep questions, including how to transition toddlers to cribs, some tips on how to get our older kids, our 4 or 5 year olds, into their own beds, and then maybe a quick little chat on some tips for us parents to help us in our sleep journey. So where can people find you, Alanna? Because you guys are definitely going to want to be checking her out. She's awesome.
Oh, you're so sweet. So you can check out goodnightsleepsite.com. It's our website. On Facebook, we're Goodnight Sleep Site. And then Instagram and Twitter, we are GN Sleep Site.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, so to dive right into it, our first question comes from Rachel via YouTube. And her question is, any tips on transitioning from a crib to a toddler bed? Her 18-month-old recently figured out how to crawl out of his crib. That was my situation too, Rachel. He's often full of energy and will play and talk to himself in his crib for at least 20 minutes before going to sleep.
So this is probably like the scariest moment for a lot of parents, right? It's
Totally.
like, oh my God, my child is nice and contained, and now they are going to be free to do what they can do. So the first tip that I always tell parents when they get to this stage is to hold off as long as they can. Now, because this little guy is crawling out of the crib, we have to factor in safety. So obviously we want the child to be as safe as possible. So she might be ready then, or he might be ready to make that transition. Always make sure that sleep habits are put in place, positive sleep habits are put in place first. So if parents are thinking about sleep training and applying any kind of sleep training program, do it while the child's in the crib, because it's a lot easier. Not to say it's impossible once they're in a bed, but it's so much easier once they're in a crib. So tackle that first. Once that's tackled, child sleeping well, all of that is put in place. There's no nighttime behavioral issues going on. And you're ready to make that transition, have a plan with your partner. So, sit down and figure out, okay, what are we going to do if Ben comes out of his room or Ben comes out of the bed.
I love that. Being proactive is everything.
Because if you have that plan, you're going to be more consistent with it. It's not going to be kind of fly by the seats, and that's when those habits got it, so you can nip it in the bud right away. So have that plan going in. Make it fun. I know it's a scary time, but it's also an awesome transitional time, right? So, make it fun for them. Explain a lot of what's going on, what the expectations are, what the rules are. There are also nighttime rules, just like there's daytime rules. Limit setting, all of that. So talk a lot about it, but then make it fun. So have them go out to the store with you and pick out bedding and, buy the new bed and get them involved in the process. And then once it's happening, really stay on top of those rules and those boundaries that have been put in place. And that's probably, it's such a slippery slope, guys, and it's so easy to get into that that time of, coming in and they're lying in the bed and you're having to, so really try and kind of stick to it right from the beginning.
And would you have any tips for Rachel? I'm thinking back to my own experience, the whole Jack in the Box.
Yes.
So if he starts because when they're in a crib, they're contained, right?
That's right.
They're not coming out, they don't have that freedom. So do you have any tips for parents who are dealing with that when they first transition?
Absolutely. So there's a few ways you can handle it. One is what we call the silent return. So if it's where your child's constantly coming out of their bedroom and seeking you and coming into your bed and just coming out of the room in general, it's again, they're looking for that attention, right? And they're looking for that response. And it shouldn't be rewarded. That's what I always say. So it's the silent return and taking them back into their bedroom and not a lot of stimulation, not a lot, it sounds terrible to say, but not a lot of talking.
I agree 100%.
2 o'clock in the morning isn't time for playtime and cuddles. Give a lot of cuddles and love and attention at bedtime during the bedtime routine, so they're not looking for that at 2 o'clock in the morning. So kind of, we're always talking about filling that tank. So filling that tank at bedtime helps. And then it's the silent return. Yes, they're contained in their crib, so crib their room. You might have to take out some of those distractions.
That's just such a good point.
Totally.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, we've had to take out, I've worked with clients where we've taken out everything but the bed sometimes, right? So, if there's toys or distraction, things like that, give them a couple little things that they can play with in their bed. Because I know she mentioned, he's up for 20 minutes or so, and that's good. That's amazing. There's nothing wrong with that. I always say with my kids, they can throw a party in their room for all I care. As long as they're not coming out and bugging me.
If they're entertaining themselves, and it sounds like he is falling asleep after the 20 minutes.
So he has that skill in place, right? We know he can do it.
Yeah.
So don't interrupt that, right? Don't become that obstacle. So silent return, crib the room. I mean, sometimes we have to go as far when I say crib the room as putting on the gate sometimes, or the childproof handle on the inside of the door. You know, there's different methods that you can do.
Yeah.
Do your research, find the method that works best for you. The biggest thing is consistency. So whatever route you choose to take, be consistent with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100%. That's great. And it's such a good point you make too about the boundaries. And sometimes it all depends on your kids, but if your kid is a really big explorer or wants to see what's happening in the middle of the night, you also have to think about keeping your kids safe.
Absolutely.
So you don't want your 18-month-old climbing on your counters in the middle of the night in the kitchen. So if you have to put a little childproof knob on the inside, that'll help keep him safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I hope that helps, Rachel.
Yeah, I know. Rachel, let me know what you think, and leave any comments if you have further questions. That was great. Okay, so next question is from Laura via Facebook, and she says she has to lay down with her 4-year-old and hold her hand for her to fall asleep at night. It can take her up to 2 hours to fall asleep. That's a long time.
It's hard.
Yeah, I'm being sensitive to the fact she's going through a lot right now, but when the time's right, what tips and tricks do you have for me to get her to sleep on her own? Oh, and also, how to get her to sleep in her own bed instead of not mine would be nice, LOL.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice, right? That's
totally.
Most parents' goal. So the biggest thing at this age, and really it can start as young as, say, 18 months, is communicating the importance of sleep. I think that's what we tend to forget. You know, we're always talking about eating your veggies, right? Eating healthy, being kind to others, but we don't really talk about, you know, it's different than saying, you know, you have to go to bed. Why do you have to go to bed? Like, why is sleep important? What does it do for us? How does it benefit you? How do you feel when you've had a really good night's sleep? How do you feel when you haven't had such a good night's sleep? And praise them. Like, how does it feel when you've allowed mommy to have a good night's sleep because you've let mommy sleep all night? You know, thank you so much for letting mommy sleep all night because you slept in your bed. So really opening up that communication about sleep, because that's just going to help foster that healthy relationship between the child and sleep. So that's always your number one goal. At this age, especially when they're going through any kind of major thing in their life, whether it's any kind of transitional thing, is really, again, opening up that communication about it, taking your time with it, and understanding that, you know, they might need more attention from you at certain times of the day. So again, bringing it back to bedtime, making sure you're getting a lot of communication in there, and maybe revamping your bedtime too. I mean, obviously I'm a big advocate of reading to your child, but maybe switch it up every now and then. And one thing that I like to do, and I get my clients to do too, is coloring with your child at bedtime, because I find what that does is it helps relax mom and dad. Adult coloring has been known to reduce stress, and it kind of brings you back to being a kid when we didn't have the worries that we have now. So, you know, mom and dad bring out their coloring books, the child can bring out their coloring books, and as you color together, it provides you then that backdrop to start asking some of those open-ended questions, right? Where you can start kind of getting to, okay, what's the root cause of her needing me there all night, right? So, because, you know, we're always, how are you? Fine. You know, how was school? Good. What'd you learn? Nothing. We want more. Give us more. Right? Sure. So this kind of provides that backdrop to be able to do that. So again, communication comes into play a lot. Setting those limits and boundaries. I mean, I know that's really hard, but then they need to understand the expectations, and that means we have to take that control back. When I'm dealing with parents of toddlers and even preschool age, the question I always ask is, who's training who, right? So who has control at that time?
It's one of those questions, right?
Yeah, like, they either laugh or they're like, right? Because we all know the answer. It's not the parent. So it's taking that control back, and it doesn't have to be in an authoritative, you know, you're in trouble way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
But little things like setting that bedtime, but then allowing them to choose the story that they read. So you're giving them that control, but saying, you know, it's 2 books, not 5, right? You know, it's bedtime, you have to put on your pajamas. What pajamas are you going to wear? So allowing them to have that choice, but you're controlling the situation is important. There's certain tools that you can use, even at 4 years, things like a toddler clock to kind of visually, so they can visually see, this is bedtime, this is when I need to stay in bed, this is wake time, this is when mom and dad will come and get me. I like we also have what we call the nighttime hall pass. So they're allowed a pass, and you can make it fun and let them create it with you, where it's 1 a week, they have 1 a week. So throughout the week, they can use that nighttime pass, and that's their pass to maybe come out of their bedroom and just get whatever they need from you. But then it's back to bed. But once that pass is revoked, they have to stay in their bed, right? So what this does is it allows them to realize that, hey, I'm okay in my bed on my own.
Yes.
For those times where they don't have the pass and they need to fall back asleep on their own. And before you know it, they no longer need that pass.
That I can handle it.
Yeah, it's like little things like that you can incorporate. But again, it all comes down to consistency, right? So whatever route you choose to take, you got to stick with it. Then trying something here and trying something there.
Yeah. So in Laura's case, where she's laying down with her daughter every night to fall asleep, what would be a good first step for her to try?
Yeah.
As far as the transition.
You can, instead of laying down, sitting, right? So little things like that.
Yeah.
During the bedtime routine, like mom will sit in bed with you and read you your story, but once we're done the story, mom's going to leave. And again, it's them understanding what's happening. So don't just get up and leave, but have them understand that this is so almost like a family meeting. Sit down and say, okay, this is what's going to start happening at bedtime.
Yeah.
You know, mom's going to sit with you in bed, read you your story or whatever you want to do at bed, and then mom's going to go and you're going to fall asleep and you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of maybe buying that little stuffed animal or some kind of comfort item where this is kind of going to replace me at night. And when you wake up and you feel like you need mom and dad or you need that help falling asleep and mom's not lying in bed with you,
comfort object.
Give it a little cuddle and mom will come get you in the morning. So it's really comes down to communication, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
little
and
stuff like that.
And opening the conversation through coloring or some kind of creative activity, I think that's great because it's amazing when you're doing those things. It kind of shuts off the noise in your brain and just allows you to be really centered. That's awesome. I hope that helps, Laura. And again, let us know in the comments what you think. If you have any further questions, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then finally, I guess, do you have any questions for us, moms and dads?
Yes.
And our sleep. What can we do to help us have a better night's sleep?
Yeah, I hear a lot from parents where it's like, my child sleeps well, but I'm having a hard time sleeping. And I think the biggest thing when it comes, there could be so much involved in why we have difficulty either falling asleep at night or falling back asleep if we wake up in the middle of the night. I think the first thing that we always need to look at is our lifestyle. What are we doing that's hindering our sleep?
Yeah.
And I know for moms especially, once the kids go to bed, it's like, that's our time, right? Totally. That's when we binge our shows and get caught up on social media and check our emails. Like, rightfully so. I have small kids. I do the same thing, but what we don't realize is now we're kind of encroaching on our bedtime. So as much as I say protect your child's bedtime and bedtime routine, we also need to protect our bedtime and bedtime routine, right? So just little changes like that, having that tech curfew, turning off that tech an hour before we go to bed, starting to incorporate our own bedtime routine. So what do we do at bedtime that helps prepare our body to sleep? Things like mindful things, meditation, yoga, mindful thinking, all of that can help a lot too, but it's just making those little changes that
make
a huge difference.
It's so true because I started, I don't know, probably about a year ago at the end of the night when I'm done answering my final emails, done doing my last social media posts, I'll put my phone on silent and I charge it in my office.
Yes.
So I don't even...
Absolutely.
When
get tech out.
Yeah, and even if we are watching shows in the evening, the phone's away.
Yeah.
So we're together watching it, or even just being on my own watching a show or reading a book, but not with a constant buzzing. And I found that did wonders for helping me fall asleep at night. Yeah,
it's really important to kind of remove tech from the bedroom. I talk a lot about that, creating that family docking station in your home. And a lot of people say, well, my phone's my alarm clock. Well, you know what? Stores still sell alarm clocks.
Buy an alarm clock.
Buy an alarm clock, right? You don't need your phone. Here's the thing, guys. It's changing habits.
Yeah.
It's just like eating better and working out more. That doesn't happen overnight. It's changing those habits, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do. But it's something if you keep plugging away at it, you can definitely get there. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's so helpful. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
So guys, Alanna McGinn, Good Night Sleep Site. I'll leave all the links below, all her information. And thank you so much for joining me for today's edition of Coffee with Kelly. This was so fun.
This was fun.
I'm always going to want to have a little sidekick. So good. So I hope that information was great, guys. Any questions, comments, if you'd like to have your question featured on a future episode of my Q&A, leave it in the comments below or tag me on social media using the hashtag coffeewithkelly. So cheers, guys. Bye.